Hello respected viewers, I'm George from Ireland. I'm on Bryn Mawr Road in London, and behind me you can see the blue plaque where John Archer lived for many years, though he did live at other addresses in London quite close to here, in the borough of Battersea. So John Archer is notable for being the first non-white person elected to a local council in the United Kingdom, although non-whites had been elected to Parliament long before him. He's the first person of African stock to be elected to any level of government in the United Kingdom. So John Archer, he was born at Liverpool in 1863, and he was a black Bayesian on his father's side, and he was white Irish on his mother's side. The city had a considerable Irish minority, as it does today, and quite a few non-white people, when the rest of the country was like over 99% white, because it's a huge port. Anyway, so he became a mariner. He sailed this wide world, and he lived for a time in the United States and Canada. He married a Canadian woman of African descent as well. But they eventually settled in London, in this area of Battersea, just south of the river, was just being built up at the time. And that's why there's hard by the Soudan Road, and it's spelled the old style, S-O-U-D-A-N, because when General Chinese Gordon went there in the 1880s, the British public took an interest in Sudan for the first time ever. And obviously there was Lord Kitchener's campaigns in the 1890s, in which the young Winston Churchill participated, the Battle of Omdurman and all that. But Mr. Archer, he set himself up as a photographer here, and he made himself a tidy living. You can see by the sort of house he lived in. But he joined the Liberal Party. He's very much in the radical wing of it. And in 1986, he stood for the local council, Battersea Council, but he described himself as a progressive rather than a liberal. And he was very close to John Burns, a notable liberal radical figure who lived quite close to Clapham Common, so not very far away from here. John Burns, the chap who said that the Thames is liquid history. Anyway, so in 1906, it was a year of Liberal landslide. Sir Henry Campbell Bannerman absolutely trounced the Tories. Actually, the Liberals only won by 6 percentage points in the Westminster election, but in terms of seats, they did very, very well indeed, reducing the Conservatives to only 130 seats. I should say Conservatives and their Liberal Unionist allies, who were gradually being amalgamated into the Conservative Party. Anyway, so John Archer, he served on the local council here. He was concerned about poverty, about social justice, as he would put it. He wanted to raise the wage for employees. He managed to raise it to 33 shillings per week, which was a fine wage. Like £100 a week was a sort of lower middle class. Sorry, £100 per annum was a lower middle class salary. The fees for Eton were £170 per year. Anyway, because although this is a very fine street, there was quite a lot of poverty around back then, and the Liberals were becoming new Liberals, were introducing really the beginnings of the welfare state. And then he lost his seat subsequently. He later regained it, and I can't think, was it 1913? I'm not sure what his take was in the First World War. He was very close to Shivpuri Saklatvala, the Parsi chap who was elected, who was a communist, elected to Parliament for this constituency, Battersea, in 1922, and then indeed re-elected in 1924. So by this time he'd stood down as a local councillor, and he put Shivpuri out in 1913. Mr. Archer was indeed mayor of Battersea. And that wasn't just simply an honorific position, that was a sort of partisan political role. But he had moved steadily leftwards, and like quite a lot of people, he changed from Liberal to Labour. He felt that really the real dividing line in politics was economic. Did you believe in capitalism or socialism? And he was a collectivist. He said that the Liberals were not doing enough to reduce penury. Obviously, the First World War put an intolerable strain on liberalism. The world had become very illiberal, partly because of the Liberal government in this country. So he stuck with Saklatvala, and although the Communist Party of Great Britain was founded, you could be both a member of the CPGB and the Labour Party. They didn't definitively split until 1929, and in that year, that's when Mr. Archer, he plumped for Labour, campaigned against Saklatvala, who indeed lost his seat. So even though the equivalent of the Labour Party in Russia were viciously persecuted by the communists, the Trudovniki and other social democrats, the socialist revolutionaries. Anyone who wasn't actually a communist was going to be treated with barbarous cruelty, as Kronstadt showed. The communists wouldn't even allow free speech to socialists of a different stripe. So Mr. Archer, he died in 1932. He's buried in Morden, I believe, and he had his funeral close by. He was a practicing Catholic all his life. So he's a figure who's sparked greater interest recently. There are a number of local council buildings named in his honour. So that is enough about John Archer. And the Sudan Road I was talking about is just there. This street here leads down to what's it called, Battersea Park, and then just off that, that's where Sean O'Casey lived. I wonder if they knew each other, fellow Irishmen in London, living like a 5-minute walk from each other. All right, toodaloo.